Maybe not. Well, hello everyone. This is Mr. Fajardo coming to you live from Shadow Hills High School. It is March 16th, 2021. We got some good news coming out of Riverside County. Case rates down to about 6 with a positivity rate of 3%, which means we're going to hear some really great news this evening at the Desert Sands board meeting with respect to when secondary schools are able to open for hybrid learning. And in preparation for that, we've provided a lot of information since the fall to our parent community, and we wanted to take the time to also address some questions that some of our parents have with respect to our preparation for the transition to hybrid learning. So with us this afternoon, we do have our assistant principals and some key parents. Starting with Assistant Principal, Mr. Wells. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, good afternoon. Leslie Wells. I'm one of the assistant principals. I oversee counseling, special ed, and today I'll be talking a little bit about our assessment plans for this year.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. Ms. Hernandez.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Karen Hernandez. I'm assistant principal here at Shadow Hills, and I'll be talking a little bit about safety and discipline.
Thank you. And Dr. Kalkowski.
Hello, everybody. Dr. Sharon Kalkuski here, CTE Assistant Principal. Also be talking a little bit about the hybrid blending learning plan, what that's going to look like for us, and then we'll later talk about assessment. Thank you.
Thank you. And one of our amazing parents, all three of them here, I call them the dynamic trio. We'll start with Margaret. Oh, you're on mute there, Margaret. Sorry.
Hi, my name is Margaret Nieto, and I have a son who is a sophomore at Shadow Hills High School.
Thank you, Mrs. Nieto. And we'll go on to Ms. Waterman.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Waterman, and I have a son who's a junior at Shadow Hills High School.
Welcome. And we have with us Mrs. Hernandez.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me. I have a freshman and a senior, part of PTO and Boosters Club. Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you, parents. Thank you, APs, for being here with us this afternoon. For those of you that need to join us en español, tenemos también para marcar en la junta de Zoom, tenemos el código. Si gustarían usar Zoom para entender en español, está ahí apuntado para ustedes, con la contraseña también, ¿ok? Tenemos al señor Kramer que está traduciendo para nosotros anoche, ¿ok? So welcome once again, everyone, and let's go ahead and get started. We'll take about the next 20 minutes and change to have more of a dialogue, right? So this way there's an opportunity for some Q&A from some of our parent groups here. So kicking it off today, we do have with us Mr. Wells. Did you want to go ahead and start with this introduction slide here? And then we'll you just tell me which slide we need to go to, ladies and gentlemen. All right.
Good afternoon. So these plans have been constantly updated by the district, and we've done a lot of work over the last several weeks as we get closer to a date when students will be coming back on campus. So we have updated these different plans, and they are available on our website, so I encourage you to look there. We are encouraging parents, and I'm on the slide with the thermometer, number 4. We're asking all of our parents to make sure that you don't send your student to school if they're sick, because we don't want to have to do all of the isolation and whatnot, because we do have a space on campus available for isolation if we should have suspicions that a student may be sick. So we're going to ask you to make sure that they don't have a fever, or if they have any of those symptoms, to stay home. It's called passive screening. If we do have students that are exposed, we will be calling you, parents, and asking you to come and pick up your student and take them home. And if that is the case, we will ask them to stay home for 10 days. Testing is optional. We encourage you to get that testing, however, because it helps our county out with our numbers. But even if a student comes back as negative, the student will be asked to stay home for those 10 days. Mr. Fajardo, if you could jump to number 7.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to talk to you a little bit about nutrition services. Our nutrition services will continue while we are in a hybrid model. However, it'll be a little bit different. We will have what's called grab and go for all students at breakfast and also at the end of their school day at dismissal. So there'll be different locations on campus where students can grab a lunch and leave. We'll continue to have the pickup on Wednesdays for those families that need to do so, and there'll be multiple days of of meals available for those that need to get picked up. Transportation will be provided for those students in special education. We will have a little bit different way of entering school. We're going to ask parents to use our bus loop and also the front of the school. Students will be required to wear a face covering at all times when on campus. We're going to really limit the amount of people coming on campus. That includes our parents and visitors. Again, we do have an isolation room set up, and we will be contacting parents if we have students with suspicions that they may be sick with COVID. And that's all I have for our safety piece. Would you like me to talk about assessments?
I'll tell you what, if it's okay with you, let's hold off on that. And I thought, thank you so much, Mr. Wells. That was awesome. Pardon me, Mr. Fajardo. So what I thought we would do, and first of all, I just want to share with everybody that on December 15th, during our Knights Parent University, we went into this same slide deck very, very much in detail. So if anybody ever wanted to go back and reference that, it's on the YouTube from December 15th. So today we're just giving more of an overview of some pivotal slides. So again, as Mr. Wells talked about, the safety in terms of not sending your child to school sick, please. What our nutrition services looks like, what we're having our grab and go lunches, and that we will have transportation, but things do look a little different. So I thought we'd pause here before we move on. We're also going to be talking about what technology looks like and what we've been doing for the teachers on campus, and then getting to kind of the brass tacks of what if that kid doesn't wear his mask? Then Ms. Hernandez will speak to that just a little bit. But first of all, are there any parents who have questions or comments? And kind of the behind the scenes is I received an email and somebody said, that's a lot of work that's been put into this. And you are absolutely correct. And it's been a labor of love from all of us, especially Mr. Fajardo, who goes back and he conceives and comes back with all of these slides and ideas and lots of behind the scenes. And we're very excited.
Dr. Kay, I have a couple of questions. In regards to safety, are parents going to have to provide any type of documentation to the school if they are quarantined for 10 days, so that way they're not marked truant or anything like that?
That's a great question, Ms. Hernandez. That would follow under the same as attendance. So we would let the school know if a student was going to be out for an extended period of time, then they would call the attendance office and let them know. As far as I understand, there is no providing of documentation. We will not be asking for doctor's notes in that capacity regarding COVID. Clarify if I'm incorrect on that, Mr. Fajardo.
And if I may, that's an excellent question, Ms. Hernandez. The beauty of having a hybrid learning model is if your student is still capable of doing work at home, they can easily launch right into distance learning for that day. Even though they're registered for hybrid, they can still log into that Synergy Zoom for that particular teacher in any one of those periods of the day. In fact, what we're going to encourage is students to do that, even if they find that they may be coming to school late one day. We would rather not have you come to school late at all because you have the benefit of distance learning. And the same is true if you're feeling ill and out of abundance of caution, you want to stay home, just log in through Zoom. So this way your attendance will count for that day.
Perfect. I think that gives parents and students a lot of flexibility. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Great question. Elizabeth, Margaret, yeah.
Go ahead, please.
Quick question. If a child is comes down with it or is positive, are the other kids in the class and the classes for that day going to be expected to quarantine too, or just that child?
If that child is reported, if the parent reports to us that they're going to keep the kid at home because they are symptomatic, obviously there are notifications that go out. Depending on whether or not there's been a close contact as defined by the Riverside County Public Health Department, where a close contact is if you're within that student's range of 6 feet, right? And it's 15 minutes or longer, at which point then the recommendation will be made for any particular student who may be a close contact to get tested. It's not required, it's not mandated, but for the most part, those recommendations will be made at that time if necessary. If in fact there is a case of a close contact like that, we would make those determinations. But as mentioned by Mr. Wells, quarantine is for the 10 days. And again, they could be quarantined at home and still engage in distance learning, right?
Right.
To have the benefit of doing that. And if the family decides to have the student just remain at home the remainder of the school year in distance learning, you have that luxury as well. It's where it's troublesome is if we go in the other direction, right? Where if a student or a family decides, well, listen, I prefer to come in hybrid learning, I've been in distance learning, that's where it gets a little bit more complicated because we only have X amount of spaces and desks that we can squeeze into classrooms, hence the cap on how many students are registered for hybrid. Great question, though. Thank you for asking.
And I see another question, will there be additional face coverings for students who misplace or forget theirs? And the answer is yes, absolutely.
Affirmative.
Really good question.
And speaking of face coverings, right? Look at that. It's a nice transition to Miss Karen Hernandez, right? You want to talk to us a little bit about that, Ms. Hernandez, in terms of the expectations for masks?
Thank you. Yes. So everyone on campus will be expected to be using a face covering. That includes everyone on campus. So that will not be an option. Of course, if we see that a child, when they step on campus, they don't have one, we will be providing one for them. Now, in regards to what we're doing, we're going to have signage across campus that is a friendly reminder to students and staff and faculty on campus to mask up, to wear a face covering to protect everyone and for everyone's safety. So now if we go to slide 14, we talk about restrooms. So restrooms, high touch point areas, which is one of the big one, the restrooms and door handles, that would be sanitized consistently. Our custodial crew is working hard and diligently, and throughout the day, we will be sanitizing throughout the campus to make sure that the students feel safe, staff feel safe, everyone on campus feels safe. So that is scheduled into their workday. Now, if we go to slide 16, safety protocols, we're going to have a whole new Shadow Hills, but not new in regards to traffic and where you travel. So we will have signage across campus and maps that will be provided to students and staff in regards to in what direction they can travel. So our stairways, our halls will have directional signage that tells you where you can go and how to travel. And we highly encourage our students, once that student map is released, for them to look at their schedule. And this is for students who will be on campus for hybrid learning, to look at their schedule, what classes they have, and to look at the map so they can plan their trip to every classroom following the protocol of all the signage on campus. And of course, we'll have security agents outside and staff and us as administration guiding and helping kids in case they're getting lost or have a couple questions. So that will be in place everywhere so far. Now, if we go to slide 18, one of the big things that we are having on campus is our hydration stations. We have 4 that have been built in. We will not be sharing or utilizing the water fountains. And for this purpose, we highly recommend that students bring their water bottles on campus so that they can fill up in case they're thirsty or for later on throughout the day, because we are not providing water bottles for them. The stations are closed due to the CDC guidelines and everything in regards to COVID. So that is on campus. They will have the opportunity for that. In regards to the classrooms are set up so that it's 6 feet apart in every direction. So that will be something that students will see. And then staff is also aware of this. So in regards to now moving forward to slide 20. So a couple of things that we'll have as reminders on campus is the social distancing and making sure that students feel safe, staff feels safe. And in regards to the discipline aspect about it, we are the Nights Do It Right Committee is creating a system where we have a tiered system to follow in case something does happen with the mask and a student doesn't wear the mask or is refusing to. So we have a tiered system, 3 to 4 steps, where the final step is going to be the student visiting my office and having a conversation with them and their parents in regards to recommending them to stay, to go into distance learning for the safety of everyone, the CDC guidelines that we're following for COVID. So that's what I have so far, the biggest touch points. Any questions from our parents?
Now, I'll ask one that was submitted that I actually had already responded in a video I also created that will be pushed out soon. But the question came up, Ms. Hernandez. So if I'm a student, I just find it very difficult, for a variety of reasons, to wear a mask while in in-person instruction, right?
Mhm.
What are the protocols for that?
So
if you
that
want-
that would be an immediate recommendation to go into distance learning, simply because if the student is truly just feels very uncomfortable about it, doesn't want to wear the mask, we have the option of going into distance learning. So that is something that would be addressed immediately.
Copy that. Sounds fair.
Yeah.
I just a quick question regarding masks. I've seen several people not wearing the face shields from the top down, but just in front of are the kids gonna be able to wear that, or do they need to be completely covered?
So
Great
great question. There's two things, and I have it on me. So the face mask is what is required. So I've seen people who are just wearing the face shield, right? I have one too. So when I'm ready to back to opening up. So this is what is ideal, but we're not requiring this of students. What we are requiring of students is the face mask, because if you only wear the face shield, you are not protecting others from you, because you still have that opening area of your face shield. And the whole point of the mask is to protect others from that individual person as they're speaking, correct? So the face mask is what is covering you. So this is what is expected of students, to have it fully covered.
And if I may too, and thanks for that, Ms. Hernandez, and thanks for the question. We will have, the disposable face mask made available at the primary entrances for those students that are registered for in-person learning. In the event they forget to bring a mask, there will be a disposable one made available, along with a hand sanitizing station there at those entrances. So again, while we think that we've done a pretty good job covering all those things based on the safety plan, we know that we may uncover some additional things that we're going to learn along the way as we reflect on each day once we do open, of other things that we may need to consider in the order of safety, right?
I will add something that I forgot to add into this, is because I've been working on this diligently through all the classrooms. So there will be hand sanitizing dispensers in all of the classrooms. That is something that we're currently checking every day right now, just making sure that everything that's on my list for the classrooms are there. So far we are good up to now. We just need to install a couple more little things here and there, but there will be a hand sanitizer in every classroom. And there is hand sanitizing stations, portable ones, that will be spread out throughout campus. We have a total of 4 and another 4. So we'll have a total of 8 hand sanitizing portable stations spread out throughout campus, on top of what is in the classrooms, on top of the restrooms that will be available for students as well and staff.
Any other parent questions at this point? We're having some coming in from some parents on our Spanish translation, and they're asking about scheduling. So we will be getting to that part, talking about scheduling and what that looks like for your students shortly. Anything else on safety or setup? All right, well, with that then, Mr. Fajardo, if we can whip on over to slide 23, we're going to look at some of the technology aspects of what our classrooms look like. So there were some pictures. Some of those desks, even though we have all the desks on the floor, some of them will have X's on there where the students will not be seated in order to maintain that social distancing that Ms. Hernandez had spoken about. But this is what the classrooms have been enabled with: an LFD. We have Red Cat Lightspeed audio system with a remote mic, because if you notice when Ms. Hernandez had put her shield on, and then also with the mask, was a little bit muffled. So there's going to be a mic set up so that teachers can speak and be heard clearly by the students, both at home and live. We're going to have Huddle Cam conference video cameras, so that is a very high powered camera to capture all the essence of what learning is going on in the classroom. Each classroom has an air purifier installed, and then the desk shield, which is kind of like just the big plexiglass shield in front of the desk of the teacher.
And the one thing, if I may too, Dr. K, with regard to the Huddle Cam, there were a couple of questions that came in about that particular camera is not intended to pan over the classroom. It's supposed to follow the teacher, so it's on a remote control. It does pan, tilt, and zoom. It's part of the reason why we decided to go with that particular type of a camera in the district. along with a tripod. So this way the teacher can set that up and they can remote control it as they sort of navigate the front of the classroom. Again, in conjunction with the audio amplification system and a new large format display touchscreen television screen that they can use to also instruct, right? So we wanted to make sure that, our staff are fully equipped with the technology required to simultaneously broadcast their instruction to those students in person, as well as to those that are in distance learning for that particular period.
Do the students' desks have the desk shield?
For secondary, they were not a recommendation or they were required by the public health department. So no, they do not.
Good question. Any other questions? Elizabeth, Margaret? No?
All right.
Okay.
Which slide, Dr. K, you want me to go to?
Let us go. I just want to talk really quickly about slide 24, the connectivity, because I want to give a shout out to the district. At the infancy, when there was first an idea or an inkling even that we were going to be able to go into hybrid, and of course, everybody was trying very hard and very hopeful very early on. The district went ahead and put in connectivity, higher levels of bandwidth and Wi-Fi connectivity in the classrooms. So it should be very, very smooth. We're excited about that. Some of the experiences kids have been having at home with the glitches and things should not happen from the classroom. There's, of course, just like today, going to be a little tech here and there, and we'll work through those, but I'm very pleased about that.
I love the tinfoil hat, right?
Yeah, the little tinfoil guy. We don't have to have tinfoil caps. We're just trying to be funny. Got a little tinfoil cap. So we're behind the scenes with the librarian. We've been running around to classrooms. We're setting all the classrooms up. And again, it's a very exciting time. If there is any communication about or concern about Chromebooks, please let us know, families, right away if you need to have something swapped out, if the MiFi device is not working. But again, we should be up and running very smoothly for these 54 days. And if you split that apart, approximately 22 each when your children will be in our school. So it's very exciting. So if we just, I think, can go over to curriculum, instruction, and assessment, slide 31, Mr. Fajardo.
Yes. I did want to say something about Chromebooks for the benefit of everybody, that it is registered for hybrid learning. Please make sure that your Chromebooks are fully charged when you bring them to school, okay? There will be extremely limited charging capabilities on campus because of the 6-foot distancing rule and other safety measures. So it's going to be very important, again, that students do come with fully charged Chromebooks. That's going to be very necessary. Now, what's the slide number again, Dr. K?
Well, so if we jump to 31, but I do see a parent question touching a bit more on transportation. And again, that's totally fine. We'll just weave in and out. Not a problem here at all. No pun intended. There still will be drop-offs. And of course, the buses will be coming for the students. Ms. Hernandez has been in communication, as I have previously, with our Sunline, because we're one of their bigger riderships. So I don't know, Ms. Hernandez, if you have anything to kind of add to that.
So they're simply waiting on a date. They have been ready to go. We just need to give them a date, but because we don't have a date, I cannot share that information with them yet, but who knows, maybe we'll have a date after tonight's board meeting and then I can follow up with them tomorrow morning.
Did you have a specific question, Ms. Hernandez, kind of in regards to that?
Ms. Hernandez already answered it. It was with regards to the public transportation.
Okay. Terrific.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question regarding the Chromebooks. So my son has been using our personal laptop, but is he to return back to school with his Chromebook?
We prefer that they actually come to school with their Chromebook, Ms. Nieto, only because they have been all pre-programmed to jump on the Wi-Fi. And if they bring their own personal device, it's a challenge. It can still get on it. But for the most part, we would prefer them, utilize their own Chromebook that we issue here during the time they do come back with us in hybrid.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, and to that point, Ms. Nato, thank you so much for asking that. To that point, have them play with it a little bit at home, because if it hasn't been turned on and kind of connected and things like that, we might have to finagle a couple things from this end. and we can certainly help with that. So to all the parents, if you've been using your own personal device and they're coming back to school with a Chromebook, just turn it on and kind of get it going and make sure, to Mr. Fajardo's point earlier, that it's very charged. Thank you.
All right.
So yeah, so slide 31, this is getting to the nitty gritty. Actually, then go to slide 32, we can see the schedule. We are still in our asynchronous learning at home. We are asking students to, the gates will not be open unless something's changed till 8 o'clock.
Correct.
And then we will begin with live instruction at 8:30. We're starting at 8 o'clock just because the students may need a grab and go breakfast. And so that will be set up. But otherwise, you know, just if you're here at 7, we're not going to have the gates open. But the expectation is that there is an asynchronous learning occurring at home at that time. And that's a good time to touch base with the teachers, and they'll be answering emails and maybe even a little bit of tutoring here and there. But you have your cohort A, Monday, Tuesday. That's our purple in-person, periods 1, 3, 5, 7. And then at 12:20, our dismissal, which is a grab and go lunch. And then, as Ms. Hernandez said, once we have exact days and so on, then the transportation would be available for the students. And then Wednesday is going to be, all students will be in distance learning. Teachers as well will be home. The expectation is that the custodians who've been working really, really hard, super shout out to our morning and night crew as well, but they will be thoroughly sanitizing and cleaning on that Wednesday. So it's a real work Wednesday for our custodial staff. So that will be at home, give everybody that break, but it's still learning. It's still a learning day. And that's critical, please, that students understand that. It's all asynchronous. And then our Friday is our cohort B. They come back to a fresh and sparkly clean campus. That's our silver group. And they have that same schedule, 1, 3, 5, 7, the dismissal grab and go lunch. And then our Friday, 2, 4, 6. And that's also our SEL. Please note on Tuesday, period 6, we have our SEL. So we're going to continue with our character strong lessons. And if you recall, I believe it was in our January.
I believe it was.
KPU, where Mr. Coach Schutnick talked about that. So we're going to still have our character strong, and it is stronger than ever, and it's going to be more necessary than ever to provide those supports and lessons for our students and guidance, not quite lessons, but guidance in comfort. Okay. So that's our schedule. What do you think, parents?
Any questions?
I'm a little bit confused. Only on the morning part. Okay. So what time are they expected to be at the school in the morning? No later than 8:30?
No later than 8:30 is correct. So if I may, you know, we wanted to make sure that because of the social distancing requirements and because of the fact that we want to make sure that we do have some safety measures in place for students who may want to sit and have their grab and go breakfast, that we needed to narrow that time to about 30 minutes. And so if we open the gates at 8, you know, that would allow for students to come onto campus, kind of spread out, pick up a grab and go breakfast if they want to, and wait until obviously the bell rings to get into their first period class of the day, which starts at 8:30. And the same is true at dismissal. Clearly, we'll end up having staggered release times. So this way we can avoid bottlenecking on our exits and bottlenecking at picking up a grab and go lunch. So we're going to dismiss by building to ensure that there's enough space at the end of the day. So this way students can pick up their grab and go lunch and then make their way to get picked up or to the bus to go home. Did that answer your question, Ms. Hernandez?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
I know I'm sorry. I know sometimes students may have to get dropped off a little earlier because parents' schedules and they're back to work or whatever the case may be. Will there be any type of monitoring of students congregating outside before the gates open, or was there anything being done about that?
That's a great question, and that's one of the things that we're trying to avoid at all costs, right? Only because, again, the safety measures that are in place. Now, over time, some of those things may relax given whatever public health orders are at that time. But for now, we're really trying to encourage students not to be dropped off prior to the 8 o'clock hour Although a lot of our office staff, their start time typically is around 7 a.m., including security agents and administrative staff. We want to make sure that we maximize our time in preparation of what to do that particular day, rather than really providing any type of supervision out in the parking lot for early drop-offs. And if that becomes a challenge for families, once again, distance learning is an opportunity, right? And we want to try to, again, just take every single safety precaution necessary. So this is why we're asking and doing a lot of this with our parent community to ensure that this partnership can coexist, given some of the challenges that we know that some of our families are going to go through. And while we totally understand that, we also want to make sure that we are doing our best by providing whatever safety precautions and protocols we put into place for those that are coming to school, students included, as well as staff and our faculty. But that's a great question. That's why, as much as information we can put out there beforehand, folks can really make that decision. Should we send, little Johnny to school in hybrid, or should we just maintain, the distance learning environment at least through the end of the school year, obviously. So again, that's information we'll be pushing out on a consistent basis. So thanks for that.
I just had a quick question. So while cohort, can't say the word, cohort A is in person, cohort B will be online at the same time?
That is affirmative, Ms. Waterman. So if I'm the teacher, you're my cohort B that's at home right now, while I got students in front of me in cohort A, but we're all in the same class. It's just cohort B is at home zooming in, while cohort A is in front of me. So to answer your question, that's exactly it.
Okay. And in regards to the cohort, can that be accessed on parent view or student view as to which cohort the children are in?
That's a great question. In fact, yes. The schedules, if you do log into student view or parent view for that matter, you'll see, and I can't remember exactly where it's located. Mr. Wells, you may or may not necessarily remember.
Yeah, it's under student info.
There you go.
Other info.
Okay.
Perfect.
And I can imagine that you're probably going to ask, well, can we change cohorts? Unfortunately, that probably won't be available. We do have a wait list for those people who are interested in that potentiality. At this time, because of the spacing requirements that we have and the number of students that are coming back on campus, we've had to adjust some of the cohorts for some of the students, and so we're not able to really accommodate requests for that at this time. However, if you have a reason to request that, please contact your counselor and they will put you on the wait list. And if we are able to accommodate your request, we will do that.
Oh, okay. So the information that's on there now is what they're going to be in? I mean, that's not going to change.
That's not going to change. No, that's what you see now in student view or parent view is correct, and it won't change.
Okay.
Mr. Wells, it's my understanding that, for example, I have a younger child that goes to elementary. It's my understanding that they put together, they're all in the same cohort, is my understanding. But if for some reason any parents that have kids at a high school that are in cohort A, but let's say their younger sibling is in cohort B, can there be an exception to making sure that the cohorts are the same?
So we've been working with our feeder schools to try to minimize that. And if we've missed somebody, please contact your child's counselor and we'll see if we can mitigate that.
Thank you.
That's a great question. Thanks for asking that, Ms. Hernandez. And thanks again, everyone. And that's the slide that we're on right now, right? To make sure that, if there's any other questions related to the cohorts, or siblings, like Ms. Hernandez had pointed out, which we do run what's called a sibling conflict report to see if there are students who have siblings that may be in a different cohort that we notice. And we reach out to those corresponding principals of those sites, and they work with us to ensure that if we need to have alignment, that we offer that opportunity. And so far, so good. It's been great. We've been working together to try to make sure that we do have those all set up for siblings.
Very good. So I wanted to just point out too, again, with slide 32, 33, 34, this explains in detail what the cohorting looks like. This particular slide deck can be found on the parent dispatch. So if you go to the Shadow Hills High School website and you go to the parent page, it's on parent dispatch and it's from March 8th, this exact, and so you can at your own leisure take your time and look through it. And then we will also put up the Spanish version, which has been translated as well. So we're going to move now into assessments. And again, if you think of a question, parents, and by all means, if you have to go, we started a little bit late. And again, we apologize. By all means, please go ahead and log off, but you are welcome to stay. We're going to talk about assessments because when you return to school, and it never really does end, but we have our springtime assessments. And it's a good measure of seeing what we've been doing so far, both on our end and students. And we have the LPAC testing, advanced placement testing, which I'll be speaking about. Mr. Wells will speak about CASP testing, and then a little bit from Ms. Hernandez on the iReady testing. Take it away, Mr. Wells.
Thank you so much for that. I'd like to talk about a couple of our accountability measures for our federal government and for our state government. Namely, those are LPAC testing and our CASP testing. I'll start off with our LPAC testing. That's a federal requirement for any student who is identified as an English language learner. Typically, these students have a class on their schedule called designated ELD. The majority of our students are in that, although some of our seniors may not have that class, and some of our students in special education may get their services through their special education classes. As part of being an English language learner, we're required to do a test every year called the LPAC. In years past, you may have heard the term CELT. This is the newer version of that. The LPAC covers 4 domains: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. All of those we can do this year remotely. The interface that we use has been updated so that we can monitor from afar to make sure that students are not getting unfair advantage by asking somebody or using a cell phone. We have the opportunity to test on campus if there is a need. You just need to let us know, my office know, particularly me, and I can make arrangements. For the LPAC, the reading, the writing, and the listening are done. We're doing those as group tests. For speaking, however, we have to do that test individually. And to do it remotely takes about 25 minutes. And so I have a team of teachers and paraprofessionals and myself who are meeting with students, and we're doing those individual assessments. We have a total of 299 students to test before the end of the year. The window for our LPAC testing opened in February, and we have until the last day of school, actually the last day of May, to finish that. So we need to get 100% of those 299 students tested. This month, we have our state testing. We call it the CASP. Sometimes people refer to it as SBAC. And we have 3 different test systems that we're using in CASP. One of them starts tomorrow, actually, and this is for 11th graders only. The last time that students were tested for this was in the 8th grade, but our 11th graders tomorrow will start with the California Science Test. We call it the CAST, and that test is about an hour. We're doing it through our 11th grade science classes, and then there are about 79 seniors who we missed last year, and it's a graduation requirement, so I've actually set up a date this week to test some of those students. But that test takes about an hour. Again, the interface is all done online. We're doing our testing for LPAC and for the CASP, the entire system, not the CAST, on Wednesdays. And the reason that we did that was to ensure that we could maximize our seat time with teachers. We wanted to make sure that we weren't impinging too much on that very precious live synchronous time. Typically Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Wednesdays are what we call an asynchronous day, and teachers have the opportunity to meet with students live, and we encourage them to do so. But if a student misses a class for testing on a Wednesday, it's not as important, it's not as impactful as it would be on a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, or Friday. And our faculty agreed to this. If a student is testing and they happen to miss another class, we will go ahead and change their attendance record to reflect that they were in testing at that time. Teachers are aware of this, and they're making sure that students have that opportunity to make up anything that they may have missed during that testing time. The other 2 parts of the CASP, or the SBAC, include our English language arts and math. Both the English and the math have 2 parts each. One of them is called a performance task, and that's where students are asked to really put the knowledge that they have into some sort of product. They have to really wrestle with something and create a product, something it's a performance task, and they're asked to analyze and give a response to something that's real world. That usually is done over 2 days. We're doing it in 1 day, but they have a significant amount of time. It's never been an issue. It's one of the areas where our students do really well. The other part that's a little bit more difficult for many students is the computer adaptive test. This is, the computer will continue to give students more and more questions the more they answer right, which seems counterintuitive, but we want to see what they're capable of doing. And so that test will be a minimum of probably 39 questions. It could be up to about 47 questions, depending on how well a student answers. You may be asking, well, why is this important? Why do our students need to take these tests? Well, there's a couple of reasons why it's important. One, if a student is interested in earning the Golden State Merit Seal on their diploma, they have to do well on these exams. Secondly, if they're looking to become a candidate for the Biliteracy Seal, they also need to do well on these exams. If a student is interested in becoming a teacher in the state of California, this replaces an exam called the, oh my goodness, I can't think of it. CBUS, thank you very much, sir. And lastly, and probably the most important for many of our students, is if they ever plan on attending a California State University, the results on these tests determine placement. So if a student doesn't want to take a class in college that they took in high school, their best bet to avoid those remedial classes or those lower level classes that may not count towards their degree is to do well on these tests. And many of our students do well, but we want them to take their time and do the best they can on it. The fact that they're able to do it at home is great because it's a much more comfortable situation. In all of these tests, students must have their camera and their microphone on. They have to use their school-issued Chromebook. If a student turns off their microphone or their camera, the test will stop. We have to be able to monitor them. If we were in person, we'd be able to see them right in front of us. At home, this is our way of doing that. If there's a connectivity issue or if a student has an older Chromebook, please have them contact me. They can test on campus. Or if they need to exchange their Chromebook, they can do that in our library Monday through Friday. We have that available for them. And the window for our CASP testing, again, started this month, just 2 weeks ago, and goes until the end of the school year. But we're trying to get everybody done before AP testing starts in May. So by the end of April, we hope to have everybody tested. And you can see here, these are the dates and times. Students will be meeting, typically testing with their own teacher. However, in a couple situations, we have a couple of special education teachers and other teachers on campus who may pick up a section or two. But for the most part, students are testing with their own teacher, and they're doing it during time where they're not in a class for live instruction.
Fantastic. Thanks for presenting that information, Mr. Wells. And along the way this year, parents, something new that our district has pushed out is called iReady. So if we can go please to slide 15 there and slide 16, Mr. Farado, this is a diagnostic tool that's an opportunity. So while we still call it a test, it's formative and it provides in math, it's a computer adaptive, so similar to the CASP, testing to determine a level of mastery. So in the case of math, it'll determine which grade level, for example, a student's skill set is. And it's broken down by domains, so the particular types in which of math that individuals are studying. Likewise in English, it's also computer adaptive test, and it determines the level of mastery, and it provides lexiles. So reading lexiles, which is the level at which a student is reading. And it's a very informative. There are tests that are in the fall, then we have a winter, and we have a spring. So on our next slide, that it also drives and supports students who are on FEV tutoring, which we had spoken about in one of our other KPUs, and it also supports all of our students who are on IEPs and other ways that we provide interventions for students. So it's formative, and it provides a lens for the teachers to be able to really understand the students that they're working with. So iReady is along the way. If you hear your students talking about it, that it's something that they do at school. They can be logged on by their teacher, and they can be looking at this during async time, and the teacher is there supporting them. So again, I wanted to emphasize, please, on slide 17, Ms. Fardo, that our third assessment is coming up for iReady. So parents, to please have that conversation with your students. And the neat thing is they know where they stand. So it's one of those assessments where the students can go in and they say, what did I get? What did I get? And some of the questions are easy, some of them are harder and more challenging. And it has appeared that the students, again, like CASP, they're taking this seriously because it's providing them an opportunity for seeing what they need to do, maybe reading a little bit more at home, maybe helping reading a recipe, following directions. And please, April 12th through the 30th, this is your final, this year anyway, opportunity for the iReady assessment. Any questions on iReady, parents? So we have the three. We had LPAC, we talked about CASP, we talked about the CAS. Some of those are very specific to our student subgroups. And then we have the iReady, which is in math and English.
No questions here, but it seems like there's a lot of tests, or it sounds like a lot, but just a, typical mom thing that I always include for my kids is just feed them healthy, full night rest at home. They will absorb if anything external is happening in the house. So if they're getting ready to test, just provide a good environment at home to the best of our ability. That's all.
So typically the last two iReady tests were taken at home. Will this third one be taken at home or at school, or do we know?
So we can do a little bit of both. My guess is that the teachers will be structuring some of their asynchronous Wednesdays to be able to allow for that as they guide their lesson plans. And that's a great question too. If I can just go back to a moment for what Ms. Hernandez said there. I used to say to my students, test and rest, and also to my own children, because it is a brain drain. And springtime, of course, there are other things going on. And we're very excited. I think one way to look at all the testing, while we hear the word test as adults and things, these are opportunities. They're lenses. They're ways for people to gauge where they are in their learning, and for their teachers to be able to know that so that they can prepare better for meeting the needs of the students. That's a great point. Thanks for bringing that up. And good question, Margaret. So more on that. Whatever we find out, we'll push out to parents. And of course, please always follow Mr. Fajardo's parent dispatch, and we will reiterate some of that iReady assessment coming up. And finally, and this is very exciting, the advanced placement tests. Oh my goodness, what a wonderful world we have. We're going to be having, so if you want to go ahead, please, Mr. Fajardo, there we go. Our Shadow Hills High School Knights are college, and they are a college and career growing group. Why taking AP classes can help students. So I got this right off of the College Board website. And similar to what Mr. Wells said about the CASP and it being informative for going into certain colleges, likewise with the AP students learn essential time management and study skills that are needed for college and career success. It's a very rigorous course. They can matriculate out of here if they have a passing score of a 3, 4, and 5. Colleges, some colleges, not all, but many will waive that class and give them college credit. So the energy and effort put forth on this end in high school can pay off in that the student does not have to retake a more basic class as a freshman or even a sophomore in college. They dig deeper into subjects that interest students. So lots of times a student who really likes literature, for example, they would take the AP Lit and Comp test as juniors or seniors. Getting into college, again, students who take those AP courses, they send a signal. So admissions people look at these. They send a signal to colleges that they're serious about their education. And colleges know, again, how rigorous these courses are. Students who were straight A students in college prep classes, maybe even in honors, this could be their first B, in some cases even a C, and we're embracing that because it's not about the grade as much as that final assessment where they're going to strive for the 5. Of course, we strive for a 5, but even a 4, and in some cases a 3, a college will view as passing, and a student who has attempted that is very honorable. 85% of selected colleges and universities report that a student's AP experience favorably impacts their admission decisions. Next slide, please. So what does that mean for Shadow Hills High School? Okay, again, succeed in college, and I spoke to save time and money. Next slide, please. Our administration dates. So again, this is really novel and quite new this year, but we have 3 administration dates for these tests. We have administration 1, so starting May 3rd through 7th, 10th through 12th, 14th, 17. These are in-school paper and pencil. So these are opportunities, and I've been notified by the teachers, and I'm logging them into College Board. We have 11 for Administration 1 paper in-school tests that will be taken. For Administration 2, and if we go ahead and we look at that, May 18th to the 21st, 24th to 28th, we have a choice. The students may take paper and pencil in school. And again, the teachers have been very in communication as they've been preparing their AP students for the type of test that would best show their efforts during this distance learning. They may also select digital at home. And the metrics are on that. We have 2 paper in school administrations during administration 2. We have 11 at home during administration 2. So those are students who will be on Chromebooks, and it's called digital at home, and 11 test administrations will be during that time. During our administration 3, it is exclusively digital, and the students have selected digital at home. And that is because they're more comfortable in that environment. They've been working with their Chromebooks. The teachers are showing them the tools. The AP College Board, AP Central, all the students have been working through that curriculum and provided many supports along the way to be able to be successful. It's different. It's much different. They don't get to go back when they're on their digital and are on the Chromebook and check their work. So that's a finessing and something different the teachers have been preparing as opposed to paper and pencil. And that 3rd administration, so I'm just looking over at my other spreadsheet, we have 11 of those as well. So for administration 3, and that's interesting because those are in June after school gets out, and that's the final opportunity for students to take the digital at home. Okay, and next slide, please. What tests are your students taking? Well, there are 19 of them, and I won't read through, but just take a perusal at that list. I think back and look at that. Wow, here's what I would have liked to have taken: AP Psych, and kind of look at that A-Push. And again, they're delving deep, digging deep into the rigor and the essence of a class, and it's a genuine college class, and it's very exciting. Okay, next slide. And here we have our AP exam specs of student registrations. We have 513, enrollments and tests 990. Exam registrations, that is students who have said, I'm taking it, I'm doing it. And it's a no harm, no foul. It's no penalty this year if they decided at the end they didn't, but they said, I'm doing this. And then we only have 87 who said unequivocally, I'm just not ready, I'm not going to do it. So we have a total cost, and it's important that parents please understand this, of $81,362, of whom we have some students who've received some scholarship from PTO. They applied, and thank you so much, PTO parents, for organizing that, and with one of our teachers, actually several of our teachers who put in with that as well, but Ms. Anciano, who is the inspiration. So shout out to her on that scholarship. Likewise, we have AP student athletes who are part of the boosters, and there's an opportunity for scholarship there as well. And then we do what we can as our school, but we've also asked that students who still have any sort of outstanding payment on their AP test, certainly their focus is on preparing for the exam itself, but that they please put in a payment plan. So we have a number of students who are doing that and kind of chipping away at paying for those tests as well, because they are costly. But again, that's time on this end and money on this end. That is a savings in both time and money once a student goes to college. And boy, oh boy, college is expensive. So it's highly worth it. So anything else? Mr. Wells has been really a go-to for me with AP, has a lot of experience with this. Mr. Fajardo, anything else that I should speak to? Gentlemen, questions, parents?
I just want to say we've come a long way in public schools. During my time when I was in high school, not one AP class was offered.
Oh.
Now we got close to 20 plus AP courses, not to mention all the dual enrollment courses that we afford to our students through our partnership with College of the Desert. So talk about progress, equity, and access. This is it. This is a testament to that. And that next slide that Dr. Gahab reviewed, what's even more impressive are the number of students that are taking those AP exams, because it's not enough that they take the class without necessarily taking the exam. And I do believe one day we can come to a point where we could potentially pay for all students to take those exams. So this way there is no out-of-pocket expenditures for any of our students. Again, that's just me talking, and I'll fight the battle to make that happen one day. But that's where we're at. So kudos to all the parents supporting the staff, and the students to take these AP courses, to take advantage of the opportunity, to feel what it's like to take a college level course, and more importantly, to strive for that 5 on those AP exams.
So if you have any further questions, please, Mr. Wells is our expert in the CASP and LPAC, and certainly a support to me in our advanced placement. And then I can also speak to anything for ELA iReady, and then Ms. Hernandez is our math iReady expert. So reach out, parents, if you have any questions. There is no question that is not a bad question. We appreciate and respect all of them because it provides information for us. So thank you.
Perfect. Well, that pretty much concludes the presentation, right, Dr. K, for this afternoon. Unless there's any burning questions for the good of the order, we realize there may be more that come, but this is our, another opportunity for us to come back and provide that much more insight into both assessments as well as our transition plan to hybrid learning. So I'll open it up. Any final concluding questions or thoughts from our parent community?
So this might be too early to ask, but coming into the new school year in August, will we be hybrid?
That's a great question. I don't know what the answer to that is yet. My assumption might be that we try to do that, and kind of ease into quote unquote normalcy for a true sort of traditional in-school format. We may decide to do that sort of soft, to have that soft opening in hybrid and then transition to full. But again, that's speculation on my part. But I do see that being a possibility. Good question.
Mr. Fajardo, I have a question, actually maybe 2. I forgot to ask when we were talking about a little bit about the transportation for the Sundial bus.
Okay.
Previously, I know that they jam up the buses with students because there's just so many, but I'm hoping that because they're separating out cohort A and B, that'll lessen how many students actually load the bus. But will they be following any protocol on how students load the bus, or is just up to the parents to discretion and responsibility to figure that part out?
That's a great question. And I don't know, Mr. Hernandez, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we've had an opportunity to have those discussions with Sunline yet. I do know this, that they currently have their own restrictions right now, for the most part, right, for all their routes, right? So the idea would be that we would assume those same safety regulations that they have in place, because they're a third party, service provider, that's independent from the school district, and more importantly, they're the ones that really kind of allowed for this partnership to occur, to add those additional routes to us. So the question that we may have is, once we know that date, which again, maybe as early as this evening for us to transition to hybrid, that will then launch those discussions with Sunline Transit Agency to determine how many routes they're actually going to provide us with, if any, because again, there's a likelihood that they may not too. So again, it really depends on those conversations with folks to determine whether or not we're going to have sufficient routes in the morning time, based on capacity, because of the 6 foot social distancing that they may be implementing on their end, and the same is true at dismissal. Um, so once we know more about what that target date is, then they'll launch into sort of their campaign efforts at trying to see how many routes they can provide us with. So we will, once we know more, we'll definitely be publishing that information, in all aspects: social media, the dispatch, the nightly news, etc.
Perfect. Thank you.
My
Any word on an in-person graduation? I know
Oh,
you're probably annoyed with me asking this question, but we need answers. I know
well,
you don't have all the answers, but I always have to ask.
that's a great question, Ms. Hernandez. And in my more recent communication to all of our class of 2021, who, again, my heart goes out to all of our seniors yet again for so many missed opportunities. This is not what high school is about, right? And so, to answer your question in short, we are very optimistic to having something. I don't know what that something will be. And again, it's all contingent upon the guidelines that we're provided with for large gatherings by the county public health department. If it's any indication that we could have competitions now, even though they may be limited to spectators that include only parents at this point, of those student athletes, we could sort of forecast or predict what that possibility may be in the future based on that alone. But again, I'm not the public health director. I'm very optimistic, and most in the same way. And we have a lot of questions, and of course, we're taking it day by day. But we will do everything in our power to make sure that if we can put something together like that, rest assured that we'll be one of the first to rally around that.
Well, we appreciate the ongoing communication and everyone's efforts, and we're hopeful as well. I'm sure there's plenty of senior parents that are just waiting.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Right.
So with the numbers falling below 7 today, will cadets and cheer and band and choir be able to perform, or still not quite yet?
That's a great question. In fact, that question did come up last week by several parent members. And what we were informed at the time, and I'll have to confirm it again, was once the county moved into the red tier, that we were able to allow for some of those co-curricular groups to practice, not necessarily compete, but to practice, right? And there's certain guidelines that will be provided with to ensure that we provide that information to our teachers, that then in turn will provide it to our students. And we'll probably find ourselves back here again with another webinar to inform our co-curricular parent community, right? That involve groups like dance, cadet corps, you mentioned, marching band, choir, etc., to ensure that we are familiar with those guidelines in terms of what practice will look like beyond the school day. Once we have more information, we'll make sure we'll make that available. Great question, Margaret. Thank you for asking that.
So keep on asking, write us your questions. Thank you, Mr. Fajardo. I was thinking the exact same thing. These are the topics for the upcoming KPU. So we will have, certainly we'll meet, gosh, March is boom, just almost done. And we'll have one in April as well, and we'll catch up. But speaking of that, we may have more information again this evening. We all got to run home and start getting ready, quick eat dinner, log into our district board meeting. And then also please note on Thursday morning that we're going to have our coffee with Mr. Fajardo at 7:30 a.m. So coffee with the principal, and you can write me for the link, but we will see you on Thursday morning and more questions can be answered then.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate
Thank you,
your time.
everyone. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hernandez. Thanks, Ms. Waterman. And to my wonderful team, thank you. All right. All right, everyone. Have a great evening. I'm going to end the broadcast.